قل هذه سبيلي أدعو إلى الله على بصيرة أنا ومن اتبعني وسبحان الله وما أنا من المشركين.
Now my world is bright, Islam is my sight. Now I found the light after those long dark nights. Now my world is bright, Islam is my sight. Now my
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to The Straight Path. I'm your host, Fuad Muhammad. Every Muslim should be ideal in whatever job he or she undertakes in this life. An ideal Muslim not only helps himself, but helps the community to be ideal. And there are very different individuals who tries to be ideal. And one is the family. But who is the head of the family? The husband. And that is why we choose today's topic to be the ideal Muslim husband. And the person who we're going to discuss this with is no other than Sheikh Asim Luqman Al-Hakim from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh, and welcome to The Straight Path.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and thank you for having me.
We've chosen this topic because we have the ideal person to speak about it.
Astaghfirullah wa atubu ilayh.
Okay, we're talking about the ideal husband, the ideal Muslim husband. In our previous episodes, we mentioned about the ideal family, bringing up the kids, tarbiyah. We also talked in some of our previous episodes of being the ideal wife, but we've never really touched the topic of being the ideal man, the ideal husband, and the ideal father of the family. Let us look at the stage before marriage. When a woman is looking for a husband, what are the qualities she looks for in a man to be the ideal husband for her? And we're talking from an Islamic perspective.
Okay, it's very good that you've said from an Islamic perspective, because I would have answered you by saying he's a knight in his shining armor.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be on his white horse, that would be the ideal husband. Mm-hmm. See, the problem is our society is so influenced by the media that it has this vague way of looking at things. And it's clouded. Mm-hmm. Their vision is clouded. They can't see clearly through the fog. Yes. Now, Islamically speaking, the Prophet ﷺ mentioned two conditions. That a person is practicing and you accept his religion. Mm-hmm. You accept his level of practicing. And the second condition is his behavior, his manners, his conduct, and his ethics. Mm-hmm. So if these two were fulfilled, then he would be the right husband, the ideal husband. Now, this, having said that, does not mean we should neglect anything else. Mm-hmm. But these come on the surface, on the top, and everything else comes or follows afterwards. But what the Muslims are doing nowadays is the other way around.
Yes.
So the first thing they check about his education, his bank account, whether he has a good job or not, how does he look, what family does he come from, and then at the very end, oh yes, before we leave, does he pray? Mm-hmm. So this is the wrong way of looking at things.
Okay, so when a young girl is thinking about marriage, and when we talked about in the episode about the child upbringing, we said one of the first rights of the child upon his mother is to choose the ideal father. Especially in today's world, we are only speaking about the young people growing up now. And of course, we know many of the women now are studying in universities. They're academic, they're professionals. What are your advice to sisters when they're looking for that ideal person? What are some of the qualities they look for, especially in today's world? And how can they really recognize those qualities?
I believe that it all revolves around these two characteristics that the Prophet mentioned, ﷺ. Because, analyze this. Mm-hmm. A marriage has an understanding. So I would ask this girl who is looking for an ideal husband, what are you looking for? When she lists down her demands and requests, you would definitely find that they are not realistic. Now, she wants him to be 23 years old with a PhD, which usually people, when they're 27 or 28 years old, maybe they can achieve that. And he has a prominent managerial job, preferably CEO, if not a VP would do. A big fat salary, paycheck at the end of the month, a big mansion, a driver, couple of cars, a beach house, a boat. What is this? This is what they think of an ideal husband. But they don't look beyond the tip of their noses. Look a little bit further. A man with such attributes, he would cheat on you. He's not going to be loyal to you. He's not going to get this wealth except from wrongdoings. So is this the man you want? Yeah, he has to be also, mashallah, an imam and a scholar. And what is this? This might be found in paradise, if Allah is willing, but not on this world. So I always tell my daughters when they're in their marrying age, what do you want in a husband? What I feel that you should look for in a husband is one who loves you, who respects you, who fears Allah when dealing with you. And why is that? It's very simple. Because if he's happy with you, he'll cherish you and love you. And if he's unhappy with you, he will not do you wrongdoings. He will be fair. He will not be unjust with you because he fears Allah. So this is the win-win situation for me as a father. I'd love to choose for my child someone who would respect her, who would love her, and who would try his best to make her happy. Now, he may be rich, and he may be not. He may be fairly, well off, and he might be poor. Now, do I have to give my daughter to someone who is poor? Is she obliged to choose someone who could barely put food on the table? No, of course not. Allah Azza wa Jal told us that the men are the guardians of women because of what Allah has blessed them and because their provisions, because they're providing for the family. So if they cannot provide for the family, then they don't have the guardianship over the women. But having said that, I don't have to go to extreme in the sense that he has to be multimillionaire. Anyone who is well off, who could open a house and support the family, and who is practicing, and at the same time who enjoys being a good character, who has a good character, good ethics, well-behaved, good conduct. This would be the ideal husband.
Yeah, and as you mentioned there, you encourage telling your daughters it's a very big role for the parents, especially in these times. They put a lot of pressure on their daughters, especially fathers and mothers. They put a lot of pressure on their daughters in terms of making that choice.
Unfortunately, it's true. Now, if you have a son, it's much easier for him to pick and choose. When it comes to the daughter, they're racing against the clock. Because the more the older they are, then the lesser chances of them being or getting the nice or the suitable spouse. Maybe in the West it's different, but where I come from in Arabia, if a girl is 18 or 19 years old and she's not married, she's being frightened. She's panicking because getting married at an early age for girls is not like getting married at an early age for boys. And that is why some parents make the mistake of pressuring their kids. And this is wrong. And some go to the extreme of forcing their girls to get married, even if the girl is not interested or does not want to do that now. They still force her to get married, and this is a sin and it's forbidden.
Okay, so we look at the perspective from the girls. Let us look at the perspective of a young man growing up now. 15, 16, just out of secondary school, going into university. what are some of the things he has to do from now if he wants to be the ideal person in the future? What are some steps he takes?
Well, among the very first is to be a practicing Muslim. So definitely the more you are practicing and you follow the Quran and Sunnah, the more your life is blessed. The more everyone around you is blessed. And they're touched by your righteousness. Allah Azza wa Jal blesses a person who's practicing and everyone around him. So the minute this young boy is practicing and following the Quran and the authentic Sunnah to the letter, and going, acquiring knowledge from scholars and students of knowledge, trying to please Allah, Allah will make everyone pleased with him, first of all. Second of all, he has to be considerate. He has to know that as he has rights, others have rights as well.
Yes.
So once you look into the mirror and you see your own shortcomings and your disadvantages, you realize that no one is perfect. And this makes life much, much easier. When I look at my wife's shortcomings, I never get angry why she did not cook the food well, or why was it full of salt. I don't get angry with my wife when the house is not tidy or clean. I don't get angry with my wife when she does not iron my clothes. Why? I'm just a normal person like everyone else. Simply because I look at my own shortcomings. And I look at the things that my wife has to live up with. And then I start appreciating my wife and say, wow, if she can cope up with me and I'm a bad person with all my shortcomings, then the least I could do is cope up with her and appreciate the good things in her, which overwhelms the shortcomings.
Okay, let's go back to the young person growing up and wanting to be that ideal husband as well. The concept is out there now, and many of the youths, they complain of this. They said, for the young man, he says, okay, I'm going to have a beard after marriage. Okay, I'm going to have my trousers cut after marriage. And same thing for the girls. But as we're concentrating on the boys, they said girls don't look at us. It's going to be difficult for us to find a wife. How do you respond to these questions and comments from the young guys, the young Muslims?
We have an Arabic saying that for every apple that falls from a tree, there's someone to pick it up. So if it's a red, beautiful apple, a healthy person would come and eat it. But if it's a dirty, rotten apple, the worms will come or the animals will come and collect it. So this allegation is not acceptable. It's not valid. When they say that we have to be not practicing so that women would accept us or girls would accept us. Yes, girls like you would accept you. But if a person like you goes to a practicing girl who is wearing the hijab fully, who's practicing praying on time, not listening to music, not mixing with the opposite sex, obeying her parents, trying her best to give out leaflets and booklets to people, calling them to Islam, giving charity, praying night prayer, fasting Mondays and Thursdays. If someone like this person proposes to her, she would definitely refuse him. So he would not be an ideal husband. And we are faced with a lot of similar scenarios where the father gives me a call and says, Sheikh, my daughter is like I've just described, and this boy proposed to her. He comes from a very good family. He's very rich. He's very well off. He's got, mashallah, a good job, a nice car, a big house. But he works in a bank. And my daughter refuses him. Though he's handsome, he's nice looking. What should I do? I said, definitely, this is not the suitable man for this girl, for your daughter. Because I know, personally, I know a lot of families that started like this. And I know for sure that the women are living in hell. I know a lot of callers to Islam. Women, nice, educated, mashallah, women with lots of children, they're in their 40s or 50s, calling others to Islam, giving dars, giving lectures, but their husbands are making them live in hell because they are not practicing. And who was responsible? The father. When he pressured his daughter, no, you marry him, inshallah, Allah will guide him. You will be the source of his guidance. And instead, this is the result of such a marriage.
Okay, let us look at the time of marriage now. Of course, we don't want to go into when that person, they agree to marry, the ideal husband, in the very first couple of years of marriage. In most cases, it is out of children. There's no children in the first couple of years of marriage. How does he behave? How does he build his relationship with his wife?
There is no procedure manual that they should follow in order to have a good marriage. The husband must respect his wife.
Yes.
And he must cherish and love his wife. And of course, the wife is obliged to do the same, but I'm not talking about the wife's role. I'm talking about the husband. The husband should be loving and caring. The husband should be considering. He has to be considerate in the sense that he only looks at himself. Whenever his wife is upset, he says, listen, I spent 9 hours at work, and then I went for a couple of hours shopping for the groceries, and I have debts to pay, I have bills to pay, and all what you do is nag that you're alone at the house, you need someone to talk. I need my time, I need my space. So everyone looks at his own needs and desires. Ideal husband is not like that. He is giving all of his life to his wife. He works and he's happy while he's working because he knows that this puts the food on the table so his wife and children would eat from. When he goes back home, he's considerate. He looks at this wife who was waiting patiently for him, cooking the food for him, cleaning the house for him, and he knows that she needs recreation. She needs someone to talk to put her head on his shoulder and complain about things that bother her. She has feelings, and he respects these feelings. It's not like they say men are from Venus and women are from Mars, and they're from different planets. No, this is not true. They are different, but men should be considerate. They should always care for their wives. Having said that, it is not normal to expect that every husband in the first couple of years would be a Don Juan, or he would always cook the food for his beloved wife, have a candlelight dinner, and maybe bring a violinist to play for him. That's against Islam, of course. But you cannot expect the man so ideal to be like this.
Okay.
But the least he could do is to be considerate.
Okay, you mentioned the husband should be loving, and this is a question that is asked repetitively, what's the meaning of love? But we'll take a short break, inshallah, and we'll be back right after this.
Now my world is bright, Islam is my sight.
Allah the Most High and Merciful says, invite to the way of your Lord with wisdom and fair preaching. Do you want to join Huda in calling to Allah? Do you want to spread the message like the prophets did? Do you want to share in the blessings and rewards? Why not support Huda towards these noble aims? Why not sponsor a program of your choice? If you would like to help Huda in spreading the correct message of Islam, please send an email to support@huda.tv or call +2 014 327 1771 for more details, or fax +2 023 8555 251.
Now my world is bright, Islam is my sight.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back. You're watching The Straight Path. Our topic today, the ideal Muslim husband. You mentioned the husband should be loving. And then we hear a lot of people saying that, oh, but love doesn't exist. What does love between a husband and a wife means in Islam?
Well, this is quite tricky.
Mm-hmm.
I wish and I hope that my wives are not watching this, because then I'm going to be battered alive. See, love in the minds of people is the interpretation of the relationships they find in novels and movies.
Mm-hmm. The romantic scenarios.
It's even worse than romantic scenarios. It's the feeling that one gets. So people think that love is when my wife is not present, I feel stomachache, nausea, I'm restless, I have to see my wife and embrace her, and then I found love again. Well, this is fictional. This has nothing to do with love. The Prophet ﷺ was the greatest lover, and his wives loved him a lot, and he loved them a lot. And he used to love Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, the most of all women. Yet when you look at how he used to treat her, this is a clear illustration of true love. It's the respect, it's the kindness and tenderness in dealing. The Prophet ﷺ, whenever she used to take a bone with meat, cooked of course, and she would eat it, he would take it and he would eat from the same place that she had her bite from. Whenever she drank from a cup, he would put his lips in the same location. I know spouses, whenever his wife eats with a spoon, and he goes, say, go and get a new one, and he refuses to use the same spoon of his wife. And when asked, I said, are you crazy? She just ate from it. I ain't gonna eat from this. And as if she is, you know, with a disease or an illness. This is the love we're talking about. I met, well actually I was not met, I was stopped while driving once with by this man. Gave me high beams and horning, and I went out of the car, you know, wanting to go for a fight. What is this guy crazy? And he was one of the people that pray in my masjid. And then I started being calm and soft again. And he said, Sheikh, I have a problem. I said, what's your problem? And I was in the middle of the road. He said, I've been married for 2 years, and my wife is so devoted to me. She's loving, she's caring, she's kind, but I want to divorce her. I said, Subhanallah, why is that? I don't know, Sheikh. I don't have this love for her. And I said, Subhanallah, is she bad to you? He said, no, my house is beautiful. It's clean. My child, I have a 1-year-old child, is always tidy and clean, and she is always taking care of herself, and she is going out of her way just to please me. But I don't have this love, Sheikh. I said, Wallahi, my friend, the only thing I could do is take my shoe and beat you with it. You crazy person. And he said, he was startled. Why is that, Sheikh? I said, are you crazy? You have a jewel in your house. I bet you, of course betting is not permissible in Islam, but it's a figure of speech. I challenge you that you spend your time watching soap operas, movies, and video clips, songs and MTV and the likes of. And he said, yes, I work for 10 hours every day, and this is the only recreation I have at my work. Yes, I do this. He said, don't you fear Allah? This is what's corrupting your household. This is what's destroying your marriage. Because you see things, and you imagine that marriage and love is like what you see, and it's definitely not what you see. This, what your wife is doing to you, is the true love. And this is what the Prophet ﷺ used to do. Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, tells us that whenever he enters the house, he would not sit on his couch, put a leg over the other with the remote control and watch movies. He would be servicing his wife, and he would patch his thobe. He would fix his shoes. He would milk the goat. The Prophet himself, he would do this because he appreciates the work she's doing, and he's contributing. This is the love we're looking for.
Okay, I just want to take you back as well. Age gap is something that is talked about, especially in the West, and they really talk against the Muslim countries about it. What is the ideal age gap between a man and a woman?
There isn't any. It's as simple as that. I would be lying to you if I say that it should be 5 years, 10 years, 30 years. There isn't any suitable age gap. You could get married to someone who's the same age as you, and she would be the silliest person on earth. And you can marry someone who's 20 years younger than you, and she would be the most sensible person on earth. It depends. People vary. The Prophet ﷺ, when he married Khadija, may Allah be pleased with her, she was about 15 or 20 years older than him. And they had the perfect marriage. To the extent that Allah Azza wa Jal sent the Archangel Jibreel, peace be upon him, to the Prophet ﷺ while he was sitting with Khadija. And he said, "O Khadija, Allah had sent Jibreel, and Jibreel says, Assalamu alaikum, and he is giving you the glad tidings of a house like a big pearl in paradise, where there is no tiresome and there is no shouting." Two things. So one would ask, why is that? What's so special? Well, because she never raised her voice or caused any of her children to raise their voices in the house of the Prophet ﷺ, which meant that he was always comfortable and tidy. And at the same time, she would not make him work at the house. So Allah substituted her, Allah rewarded her with this big house or palace in paradise made of pearl, a big pearl, with which does not have these two things in it.
Okay, let's look at the quality of patience, Sheikh, for the ideal husband. No one is ideal, as we said, but we're just talking about if at least the husband can grasp, and we as husbands can grasp most of these qualities, inshallah, then we'll be as close as ideal as possible. The idea of patience. Man having a wife that is nagging all the time. She's nagging all the time. How does he balance it out? What are some of the stages he does in terms of correcting his wife? And the ideal husband as well can be the person who divorces his wife at the ideal time, right?
True.
If it's not working. If you can quickly shed some light on this.
First of all, let me rephrase or correct, in my opinion, what you have said, that there's no ideal husband. There is. The Prophet ﷺ
of course
is the ideal husband without any doubt. And a sensible husband has to weigh things. Ahmad ibn Hanbal, may Allah have mercy on his soul, when he got married to his wife, and he got married late, he spoke to her and told her, listen, let's agree on something. If you see me flared up, you calm down and don't talk. And if I see you flare up and angry and agitative, I would not talk to you until you calm down. He said, I remained with her for 20 years and we never quarreled at all, except once. And I was the aggressor. He's saying how good this wife was. So it's always best to communicate. A woman would not reach the stage of nagging and continuous nagging every single day, like 7-10 times a day, unless the husband from the very beginning did not set the rules and did not communicate. So by neglecting your wife, by ignoring her feelings and her needs, this calls her to nag. Or by submitting to her nagging, she feels that this is the right way of solving things. So an ideal husband would look and control his house, because after all, he's the man. And if roles were reversed, then you have a problem. The marriage would not go on. The Prophet ﷺ, the perfect man, once was at the house of Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, and came in a servant with a plate of food from Safiya, may Allah be pleased with her, the second wife of the Prophet ﷺ. And he was at the house of Aisha, and the servant came to give the food to the Prophet ﷺ. Aisha was outraged And this was before the hijab. And there were people at the house. Aisha went to the servant and hit the plate. The plate fell in the air, fell down, broke, and the food was scattered. Now, I tell you, 99.9% of the men I know, if an incident like this takes place, the first thing he would say, my wife, you're divorced. Because this is an insult in front of everybody. She's not respecting me. She'll blah, 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 blah. This was the Prophet ﷺ. Yet, what did he do? He went and he looked at the gatherings. He said, your mother Aisha is jealous. So he's giving her justifications. And he went and collected the food, ﷺ, and he gave his ruling. He said, a dish for a dish. And he took one of the dishes of Aisha and gave it back as compensation to the dish that was broken off Safiya. Now, this is the act of a man, of a real man, who knows how to absorb this anger and at the same time control the effects of it.
Yeah, and it's also balancing it out, because he didn't totally submit to her, because he said he took her dish, and this established that he is the one who's responsible.
Yes, and she has to pay for it. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ made it clear for those around him that she did this out of jealousy, yet this is normal. Women are jealous by nature. So he did not reprimand her for that, but as a form of being fair, you cause this dish to get broken, you have to pay the compensation.
Okay, we're still on we're still on patience, as a matter of fact. But we also said that the ideal person, the ideal husband as well, divorces at the right time. To what extent can he allow his wife to behave in such a manner?
Divorce is a very critical thing in Islam. The ideal husband tries his way to correct any wrongdoings of his wife. And the first thing, as mentioned in the Quran, in 3 stages. The ideal husband, who's the man, who's the captain of the boat, if he sees things that are not in the right position, he gives advice to his wife. He constantly reminds her, giving her advice, because the easiest thing for a man to do is to divorce. So if I have a problem, she's divorced. End of story. Let's marry another one. But Islam does not promote this. Islam promotes protecting the house, protecting the marriage, because this is the nucleus of a society, a Muslim society. So if she is doing something that does not fall into place, Islam tells the husband to advise her. So I keep on advising her, trying to bring sense into her, remind her of Allah, of her duties, of the punishment that Allah has made, the reward of those who are patient, and I'm patient with her. If this doesn't work, Allah says, go to stage 2. And stage 2 is to avoid her, not have any intimacy, no intimate relationship with the wife. And usually, normal wives, this is a punishment, because the affection that the husband shows to his wife usually happens there. So if he abandons her and gives her back and does not pay any attention to her for a period of time, this is a great punishment that might bring her back to her senses. If this goes on, and I'm talking if this goes on for a week or two, advising her for a month or two, not if this goes on in the same day. I advised her in the morning, I didn't go to bed with her in the evening, and at night I'm going to spank her. No, this is not the way. You give everything its a proportion. The last and third stage, if all of these advising and neglecting her do not pay off, Islam, the Quran, tells us to spank them. But the Prophet tells us, ﷺ, do not spank the face, do not break a bone, do not shed blood, which is something negligible. It's like bringing the toothbrush and just, spanking her on her hand. This is a punishment. But unlike what they say in the West, this is abuse. Well, Islam looks at the greater cause and benefit, which is protecting the marriage. Now, if you go to any divorcee, any woman who's divorced, would you prefer that your husband spanked you on your hand and reprimanded you so that he would bring you back to your senses, or what you're doing now and living as a divorced woman? I bet, well, again, betting is not halal in Islam. I challenge you that 99% would have said, I wish that things would not have come to what they are now at the moment.
Yeah, but during this whole process, how does the man behave with the woman? He treats her with anger, because when a woman, and it's a human thing in us as well, that when a woman behaves in such a way, how does the man, what face he shows to his wife when he's going through these processes?
First of all, the Prophet ﷺ advised us and said, fear Allah in your wives, because they are like prisoners in your houses. And this is the fact. Wives are like prisoners. They can't go without our permission. They cannot do things without their permission. They're obliged by Islam to seek our pleasure so that Allah would reward them paradise. So we have to we must not take advantage of this and abuse them. If my wife is treating me badly, the easiest thing for me, as I said, is to divorce or to spank or to be abusive.
Yes.
But this is not the ideal husband. The Prophet said, ﷺ, the strong person is not a good wrestler or a good fighter. The strong person, the actual true strong person, is the one who refrains from being angry and who controls himself in times of anger. She's a woman. And the easiest thing I could do is slap her on her face, but this is not a man who does this. Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, Anas, may Allah be pleased with him, said that the Prophet ﷺ never ever spanked or hit or beat a woman or a child.
Subhanallah. Subhanallah. We continue to talk of some more characteristic of the ideal husband here on the straight path, but we'll take a short break and we'll be back right after this.
Now my world is bright. Islam is my sight.
Huda TV is launching a new website for you, your family and friends. Everyone. A new look, top-level designs and better technology. You will be able to ping Huda TV's new website and read all our articles, surf our video archives, chat live on Huda's forum, vote, support our programs, and give us your suggestions or criticisms. We welcome your thoughts. We strive to please all our viewers worldwide. Huda, a light in every home.
Now my world is bright. Islam is my sight.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back. You're watching The Straight Path. Our topic today, the ideal husband, and we're discussing it with Sheikh Asim Luqman Al-Hakim from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So we talk about the characteristic of patience. Okay, many men today as well, when it comes to the family and the responsibility of the family and the children, they place it on the wife. How does the ideal husband support his wife in the upbringing of kids?
We cannot neglect the role of the man in the house. The woman by nature is kind and merciful. So she gives a lot of love to her children. She gives a lot of consideration. She's tutoring them. She's taking care of them. She's so fragile. And that is why the Prophet ﷺ, when asked, whom should I seek with my best companionship? The Prophet said, your mother. And then he said, then who? He said, your mother. And the man said, okay, then who? Your mother. The guy wanted to know what's the end of it. And then said, then who? And the Prophet said, your father. So the mother has a great role. But the father has an extremely big role as well, because he's the one who disciplines the children. He's the one that they fear. Well, let me rephrase that. He's the one that the children respect most. And that is why he has to have a say in how things are. So many times the mother is emotional. She would say that, come on, allow the children to do this or allow them to do that. Let them spend the night here or there. The husband is the one with the proper judgment. So he's the one to say yes or no. He has to contribute, but his contribution would not be compared to the mother's contribution. Therefore, it would not be fair to say that, well, he should have 50% of the upbringing of the children as the mother would have the other 50%. This is not logical, because he spends most of his times outside of the house. Maybe he would not get the time to spend with the children except an hour a day. An hour would be great. And that is why the ideal husband tries his best to assign quality time to spend with his children. Now, I hope that I'm not being a hypocrite by saying this, because I am the most person who is in need for such an advice. Unfortunately, it is not sometimes possible. It depends on the people's obligations. And again, one would say, and I can hear this echoing in my ear, my wife saying that your kids have rights over you. It is not only traveling and giving lectures and making da'wah. And this is true. But I always answer her by saying, and that is why I chose you. I made the wisest decision possible to take care of a great deal of the things that I cannot do. Yet this is not an excuse. We as men, as husbands, we have to spend quality time with our children, with our wives, and to do some of the obligations Allah Azza wa Jal entrusted us with.
Okay, mentioning of quality time, what does it mean? Recreation? Does it mean sitting and chatting? How does a husband spend time with his wife and his children?
I'm not going to avoid the children, because children is a big topic. I remember one wise person was talking to me and said that, listen, when your children are 6, 7, 8 years of age, they run after you so that you sit with them. But when they're 15, 16, or 17, you run after them because they have their own friends now.
Yes, yes.
I'm not going to talk about the children. I'm going to talk about the wife. The wife, even if she's a righteous person and a practicing person, she needs a shoulder to lean on. She needs to feel the husband's support. And the quality time would be, and you'll be surprised, maybe 2 or 3 days on your own. And consider it to be a honeymoon. As Muslims, we believe the whole year is honey. And we don't need to celebrate our anniversary or so on, because we respect and love our wives throughout our whole lives. But it is very important to spend quality time with your wife that gives her a boost for a couple of years. And you try this. If you take her to a hotel room, just you and her, for 2 or 3 nights, preferably in Mecca or Medina if you can afford this. I can, because it's next door with the grace of Allah. But taking her down to the restaurant to have breakfast, or better more, bringing her breakfast in her bed, trying to do whatever you can to please her, to remind her of the beautiful days at the very beginning of your marriage. These days you spend with her, these quality time you spend with her, will give her a boost for a couple of years more in advance. But we neglect this. We're so busy with what we do with our work, with our hobbies, with our sports, with our researches, and some of the things that we're occupied with, they might be legitimate and rewardable at the side of Allah, but we have to know the priorities every now and then.
Okay, let us look into the ideal husband in the home a bit more as well. Many Muslim men see it as something that is a challenge to their manhood. When they help the wife to do the dishes, maybe to clean the house. To what extent can the husband play the role of helping his wife in the home?
Well, I've mentioned a while ago that the Prophet ﷺ, as described by Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, when she was asked, how was the Prophet inside the house, sallallahu alayhi wasallam? And she said, he was in the service of his family. He used to patch or so his stove. He used to fix his sandals. He used to milk the goat. He used to work in the household. So this was the greatest man ever walked the earth, and nobody doubted his manhood. Yet, because of our narrow way of looking at things, we think that doing the dishes would be an insult to us. Subhanallah. The Prophet didn't look at it this way. We shouldn't. We can't justify our laziness by saying we're lazy, but we don't have to say or justify it by saying, well, it's against my manhood, I'm not a man. Well, you would walk on your knees and hands if you have to get an extra $1 on your paycheck, or to get overtime, or to get a bonus. And you would accept humiliation for worldly matters. Why not accept not humiliation, but participation at the house, so that you bring joy to your wife?
Okay, let's look at the ideal husband in terms of the wife appearance. This is a question in our Fatwa program, which you've been with many times. The wife keep asking that my husband prevents me from meeting my parents. How should a husband behave with his wife towards her family, and how does the husband as well behave towards the wife family?
An ideal husband is a considerate husband. As the husband loves to see his parents, his siblings, his family, and visit them probably once or twice a week, and maybe have a gathering or Friday lunch at his parents' house. He also has to be considerate of his wife's feelings, because they also have a gathering every week at one of her siblings' houses or her parents' house. So he should allow her to go. He should treat her as a jewel. No matter what I feel about my wife, no matter how many disputes we have internally, the minute we go to her parents' house, I flatter her. I say so many good things about her to bring joy to her parents' hearts, thinking that, wow, mashallah, our daughter is living in paradise. Look at this caring husband. Look at this loving husband. This is an ideal husband. Now, a husband who's not like this is a nightmare. I know a lot of men who would go to their in-laws' houses, and they would spend 6 hours complaining of their wives. She did this, she did that, she doesn't know how to do this, she's ignorant, she is so-and-so, she's filthy, she's not clean. And this would depress his in-laws. And he seems to enjoy this. He seems to be like a vampire living on such blood. And this is not a man. Believe me, he is not a man. A man, a true man, who would bring joy to his in-laws' hearts. And what's between me and the wife stays at the house. And she appreciates this. And she thinks of that husband as someone that she should try her level best to please, because someone who treats her like this in front of her family should be respected more and treated better. Okay,
we're coming to the close of the episode. Quickly, myself and many of the brothers might be looking at you and listening to all what you were saying, Shaykh, and mashallah. They're saying, okay, Shaykh, I've not really been that ideal husband. How can I make the change? I want to make the change right now. What are some of the steps I have to take in order to be that ideal husband that you've just mentioned in the episode?
Well, first of all, my advice would be, put your shoes in your wife's shoes, and don't let anybody look at you, because then they'll think bad things about you. What I meant is, how would you want your husband to treat you if you were the wife? And do it exactly. You will find that you have to be more loving. There's nothing wrong in buying flowers when going back home tonight to your wife and just giving it to her. There's nothing wrong whenever you travel and come back from buying her a nice gift, taking her out for dinner. When was the last time you took your wife for dinner on your own? There's nothing wrong in trying to look in the mirror and see your shortcomings and see what she has to live up with, and then appreciate her. Try your best to bring joy and love, because after your death, she'll be praying for you, and she'll be supplicating for you, and she'll she'll be seeking Allah's forgiveness for you.
Okay, I think that, mashallah, is what we should end the episode with, and we do hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept us all to be ideal Muslim husbands, inshallah. Barakallah fiqh and jazakallah khair for being on the episode today. Sheikh Asim Luqman Al-Hakim, there from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. If you have any comments about the program or any questions you would like to ask the Sheikh, you can forward your email at straightpath@huda.tv, and that wraps it up today on our program. So until next time, we leave you with Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Now I found the light after those long dark nights. Now my world is bright. Islam is my sight.